scribes, like people that Paul had, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
They had a really hard job though, but it's okay.
Just trying to, I mean, this thing transcribes for me, but I still go through and I listen to the whole thing
Uh-huh.
and I,
Yeah.
type and double check that everything's right. And I'm like, this is a job. I was like, if this thing comes big, I'm going to need to hire that one out.
Yeah. That would be a good idea.
Yeah.
I
So
wouldn't
now-
say if, I say when it becomes big.
Yes.
That'd be nice.
Oh, I like that. Not if, but when. You know?
If is very rarely in my vocabulary these days, because if not, stuff just will not get done.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
So I'm talking to Jordan Brown. Jordan, what do you teach here? I don't even know what you're a professor of.
whatever they need me to teach.
Okay.
But thankfully, actually, we've revamped what we call hermeneutics, which is basically Bible study methods.
Okay.
And so I will be the main professor for that, and then they may need me for some other stuff. I've done both New Testament classes, and yeah, really whatever they need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
How many kids do you have in your class?
I have 17 in one right now, and then I also have 10 in my other class.
Wow.
And the kids range into the 50s. So.
Oh yeah, kids.
Yeah.
We're all kids. We're all
Yeah.
children in Christ.
Exactly. Amen. Amen. But you can't use that when Pizza Hut says kids eat free. You can't.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. No. It's very unfortunate.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, did you grow up knowing Christ, or were you saved later, or what's your story, your testimony?
If we're
you
gonna
were
go
to
by
say?
yeah, I was about to say testimony and salvation point are two totally different things.
Truth.
But I was saved at the age of 5.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I went to a small private school in Riverdale, Georgia, and they had hate to say this, but it worked. So there's that. They had a clown ministry that actually came, and they told me about a man who got on the cross and died so that I could be saved, and had all the little kids in tears, and they're just like, "Do you want to believe and follow this man?" We're like, "Yes, yes, okay, yes, yes." So there's that. However, the process of walking all that out, that probably took a couple of decades. So.
Yeah, I love that though. I mean, what a
Yeah.
great way to reach kids.
Yeah, it was efficient.
Yeah.
That's funny because I think about how I laugh at stuff like that now, but then I have to shut up real quick. We're like, hey, it served its purpose once, young man. Like, yes, it did. Yes, it did. I will shut up now.
Yeah.
I'll shut up. Yes. So.
Yeah, I watch a lot of the older, the older, what's the word? Kids videos, I guess. That they have then versus now, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
But it served its purpose. You're right.
Exactly.
So that was at 5. Did your family then start bringing you to church, or were you then
No.
kind of? Yeah.
I am actually one of the infamous PKs. So he was not initially, but my father became a pastor.
Oh, wow.
And when we were younger in Atlanta, he was an associate pastor for a church down there.
Mm-hmm.
And when he moved up here, it took a couple of years, but he finally got a church. So he had his first church when I was 16.
Yeah.
And since then, he's kind of moved around. His denomination, they kind of moved him like the military, and they put him in different positions. And he's been a district superintendent, but he really just wanted to be a pastor. And he's had 3 churches in the entire time, but he was in one of the churches for 10 years and the first one for 4 years, and now he just got a new one.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's kind of walked it out, and in the process, we've been walking with him. And the cool part about my father was that he never really forced the aspect of faith or Christianity upon us. He gave us a little bit of space. We'd ask questions. He'd always have answers, and thankfully, I guess I'll say God moved, and that worked out for me.
Yeah.
Because I know that there are instances where that does not work out, being a PK. So, plus the little evil PKs we have here. Pray for them.
Daily.
Definitely. Definitely.
And now they have grand PKs. So. Oh,
Jesus.
wow.
Yeah. All of them.
So, with your dad being a pastor, did that influence you in any way? I mean, I'm assuming it did because he's your father, but how did that influence you?
I would probably be reluctant to say yes. So the answer is probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it that way just because, any other PK that I know that actually ended up in ministry ran off in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Maybe younger, maybe older, maybe is still running.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of that comes from seeing all this entailed in ministry. My father went through a lot of stuff that I had a chance to witness firsthand. Just being a pastor or being a district superintendent, and I mean, none of it was nice. Uh, Cops are involved in some things. Obviously, people die a lot. People do really crazy things a lot. Uh, it's not the 1950s and 60s anymore where the pastor was revered. You dusted off your Bible if you knew he was coming over to the house. Now it's one of the top five worst jobs to have in America. um, and I mean, with everything, just with stress, a lot of them die from heart attacks because they don't take care of themselves. And so having that understanding, it wasn't really the glitz and the glam that I would probably like to live in. However, it just when God has something on you, He has something on you. And when the passion of that something gets a hold of you, no matter when, no matter where, you know. And so with that, it's about a good 12 years ago, 13 years ago, uh, I just started thinking differently. Things really just weren't the same for me, and the process to walk it out has been hellified. It has, but ultimately, I got to say that I look now at his influence, and even in the things that he walked through, and more importantly, how he walked through them, and the integrity he was able to maintain, and everything else in that. And I got to say, yeah, he was definitely a good influence when it came down to it. Still is a good influence. Just saw him last night. We were having a good conversation. It was about basketball and how the Lakers should really do something good this year. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Still, always good conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, Sorry, you got me sidetracked with basketball. I was thinking about an autograph I saw because I went to a Bulls game back when I was in high school, and it was when Pippen and,
Oh yeah,
and
of course.
Jordan were all the dream team, right? And I was thinking about they had an autograph on eBay for $22,000 or $25,000. I was like, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
Not that most people can, but
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
But I was like, oh, that would be nice.
That's good. Did you go to high school locally?
No, I'm from New York, so I grew up
Really?
in New York. Yeah.
What part of New York though?
Westchester County.
Okay, so you're up.
I'm up,
Okay,
yeah. So
cool.
I grew up. I mean, I guess it's the joke when you're not from New York, you always say how far away you are from the city. So I was 25 minutes from the city.
Oh, so you weren't that bad.
No,
No,
no.
I knew. I went to. I guess that's another thing. I went to Virginia Wesleyan for
Mhm.
my undergrad, and the definition of Virginia Wesleyan itself is a bunch of kids from the tri-state
Mhm.
whose parents apparently sent them down to keep them quiet, and when they graduate, if they do okay, they can have a part of the company business.
Well, no, we
That's
had a
really how that went
really
down.
sweet spot. We were
Yeah.
so we were next to the Bronx. That
Mhm.
was the city that bordered us, in Yonkers, which has its good parts and its bad parts. But then New Rochelle was really where I'm from. It was a big melting pot. So you had
Yeah. Mhm.
everything. But that's New
Yeah.
York. So
No, yeah, it was pretty
yeah.
cool. But I was saying that to say, like I got a chance to see a lot of kids from New York or like Connecticut or New Jersey,
Mhm.
and I'd ask them where they were from, and they're like Ithaca, and I'm like, what?
Oh no,
Where?
Ithaca's yeah.
Rome? What?
That's a
Like,
whole that's like New
yeah,
York is a whole state.
exactly. It's like maybe Buffalo. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I got that. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Where are you from?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't compute. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Try again.
All right, so back to um, pastor's kid, and when did you get the calling? Was it something like you just knew, like God spoke to you, or was it something that came over time to be a pastor yourself?
Mm.
So many people have these great stories of I just
Yeah,
knew,
yeah, nah. The people who tell me they just knew, I look at them with the biggest side eye I can,
Mhm.
because if they just knew, I don't know if they've been through enough to know yet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, who knows that could just be their life. But the funny thing is, I look at a lot of the pastors whom I really kind of adore, honor, seek to emulate, and stuff like that, and see how they got this early start. And I get all kinds of frustrated sometimes because I feel like if I'd done the same thing that they did, then how much further along would I be? And then I just gotta shut myself up because I have to remember that my walk is my walk and my race is my race, and I have to take it at my pace. And there's certain things that I needed to learn
Mhm.
along the way. I also think about the fact that a lot of the pastors that I know that were in that predicament were usually radically saved and already like non-believers. And this thing about me getting saved at 5 years old and really not knowing much at 5 years old, like at 5 years old, I'm not going to understand hermeneutics or being able to dissect the word and deliver a good message. No, that just doesn't work that way. So they had an opportunity to radically just gather all that information off the jump. That was not my walk. It took me years. It took me years. I think I finally started taking things seriously at the age of 28, but then really didn't put myself in a position to really maneuver the way that God wants me to until I started going back to school, and that was 30, 31. Yeah. So I'm not frustrated by it anymore. Obviously, I feel like God really has positioned me and put me in the right place to lead and to learn at the same time. I know that there's a church in me. I, by the Spirit, has a name, has a message, has a ministry, has all these different things. I just don't know the time. I just don't know the place. And when God makes that clear, He'll make it clear. But I guess getting back to the initial part of your question without all the anecdote, I really feel like if God was gonna, make me feel like I just knew that I was called to ministry or something like that, I don't know if I really would have done things the way that I'd have done them. As a matter of fact, I might have been horrified and just quit the ministry altogether. I think He had to initially just give me different pieces and show me that I had certain skill sets, and then finally we'd be like, okay, so here's the deal. Let's talk.
Yeah.
I think that's how He did it with me. I think that it's not as rare and precious for me as it is for other people. Like, there was a lot of nitty and a lot of gritty involved.
Yeah.
And I think I actually appreciate that more because now when I'm subjected to all the craziness, sorry, I don't want to drag it out, but Pastor Steve really wants to see people be a CG leader before they would even bother considering ministry and being a pastor, because that is technically being a pastor. You are still stewarding the hearts and minds of young individuals or whatever individuals are in your group. And albeit, a lot of the CGs really have awesome times. They do great things. I had a really amazing CG. I love my boys, and we had a great time. And a lot of them grew, but a lot of them did not. And, out of, I think I calculated, I had about 80, 90 something guys run through my group, and I had a solid core of 40, and of them about 20 would come on average. But I tell you, everything that was involved in those groups, families were having problems. People were dying of cancer, had guys in jail, trying to get them out of jail. I had one die of an overdose. So it was just like, this was not like a prim and proper or go get some ice cream and hang out and just, talk about how good God is group. Like, we went through some real things. And, like I said, I really do appreciate everything that I did go through, because now, when I got somebody calling me and they're just like, yeah, I'm high on cocaine, I know what to do, because I had to walk that out and process, and just helping guys to really live life well and get great, and just seeing everything that constitutes. Really makes me say that I'm glad that I don't feel like I was just automatically called. Like, I really had a chance to do some living, and living with people to prepare me for those moments now. So I think that's what I say with that.
That's good. Now, the people that you said, some people really grew, and some people you felt maybe didn't take as much out of it or get as much out of it because they chose not to, really. It's a choice as with everything. Did you ever feel like you took the responsibility of those people who chose not to maybe grow within the group?
Initially I kind of took it hard. But over time, God showed me, and it's funny because I joke around about it now. But you gotta learn sometimes. People just need to learn on their own, and you have to be okay with that. The one thing that I can't do for people is lead their lives for them. At the end of the day, I don't sign their paychecks, and I'm definitely not going to be the person to put a ring on their finger. Those individuals, by means of godly guidance and worldly wisdom, matter. But when they seek to have me sow into their life, at any given point in time, they can cut that off, and I get that. And I had some individuals who 1 week would always be all in, and then the next week I'm just the worst CG leader there ever was, and they cuss me up one side and down the other, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not coming back," and I'm just like, "Okay," because I decided to hold up a mirror and show you your life. You asked me to do that for you, and now that I'm doing that, I just it 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 it's something that it still breaks my heart,
Yeah.
when it does happen, but you know I can't make anybody do anything they do or don't want to do, and just with that understanding, and also the understanding that whether or not people go along with it, time continues to move. Um, I got other things I need to take care of. And if I'm sitting up here harboring other people's offenses or harboring offense off of what people have done to me, then I'm not focusing in on, the kingdom. Like Jesus' face was set like flint, even in the midst of Pharisees always coming at him and trying to kill him, or the disciples just not getting it and always asking him stupid questions. It's just he had to keep it moving, and likewise, I take a lesson from that, and I do my best to keep it moving as well. And so far, that's paid off fairly well. Yeah.
So one of the reasons that was totally like and I think many people at this church can say the same thing, was I was drawn to you because in the sermon you stand up and you give it, you let him know that you're there, you're in it, he's preaching, and I remember I told you that once and you stopped me in my tracks because you were like, you could do that too, and I was like, it was just one of those moments where you're like, of course I could do that too, why didn't I think of that? And I know that's crazy, but it hit me. It was one of those, one of those statements that just hits you,
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm so drawn to about your social media posts. You do it in a way that is honest and raw and real, and it's not like so many other social media posts that I see, which is a pretty quote of a scripture in a pretty floral background, and which are great. 'Cause sometimes it's the verse I need to hear, but you do it in a way that connects with people. And I know we touched on it before, but I'd like to touch on it again. Like, how did you, when you started doing that, just a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'll do my little Ravi Zacharias skit here. So you are standing in the middle of a street, and there is a Mack truck that is coming directly at you, and I have one or two options. I can be like, excuse me, there's a truck coming your way. Would you mind stepping aside? Because I do not want it to hit and injure or kill you. Or I can do everything that I can to get you the heck out the way, and ensure that though bruised, you'll have the opportunity to live, and you'll heal and recover, and you'll live well, hopefully. It's a metaphor that reaches across the spectrum when it comes down to it for me, and I kind of got sick and tired of seeing individuals that were just kind of living a very basic Christian lifestyle, that was void of a lot of different things, mission being one of them, ministry being another one, accountability being a huge piece of that. And it's not like I, function perfectly in all those things myself. I suck at life many, many a time, and I need people to tell me that I suck at life. But I figured if they're gonna see it anywhere, why not have it be on a platform that right now is so scrutinized, for its polarization of all things that are kind of against the very representation of Christ, even in Christian nature and Christian mode. So you can be a Christian, but you can go on your Facebook, you can go on Instagram, and all you seem to promote is a cause or a party or an organization, and nothing about any of those organizations, whether they say in God we trust or not, it's a different argument for a different day, and I know we don't have time to get into that. Nothing about those organizations has any representation that is covered in the blood. And it got to a point where I realized, I was like, okay, I have the power of a voice, and many people have that same voice, and that voice can be as simple as a keyboard, or that voice can be a voice. I wanted to make sure that if I was leading anybody in any direction, it was to the cross, and that's it. I would like to complicate that for you a lot more, but at the end of the day, that it's really just that simple. People need Jesus, and that includes Christians, and that includes non-believers, whether or not they want to admit it or not. That's perfectly fine with me, but they're still gonna, if nothing else, see what I have to say and let that seed be planted. I have a lot of friends that are non-believers, or a lot of friends that have fallen away, and for everything that it's worth, they tomorrow could turn around and just be like, you know what? I don't know anymore. I'm not sure anymore. Um, I wonder where I can get some type of literature or see if anybody has something to say about it or something like that. And in that moment, I would love for them to say, and not just because I'm me, but hopefully with a relationship built and everything else they're in, they'd be like, you know what? I think Jordan had something to say about this before. Let me go see what he had to say.
Yeah.
And I really, I don't know. It's something that just became a passion out of nowhere, and it's something that keeps me honest also, because I know if I talk it, I gotta live it.
Yeah.
I God bless and pray for anybody who has been a leader, major or minor, and fallen away from the faith and had some kind of moral failure, whatever the case may be. But I feel like that's the biggest accountability of all.
Yeah.
Because once I put that out there, I know in my heart of hearts, I believe it, number one, or else I wouldn't put it out there.
Yeah.
Which means that number two, everything in my life has to model that. And I go in grace because I'm going to make mistakes, but at least in that way, I can also be human about it, and I can talk about those mistakes. I can talk about those failures, and I can put that out in the open, because it's only those that are in the dark that shall be revealed in the light. That's Ephesians 5:8. So I'd rather just keep all my stuff in the light.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's just, I think it's really as simple as that for me. I really think that I also think it gives people hope, because if they can see an individual that I can so-called be said as looked up to, not just because of my height, but still, then if they see somebody like that saying, hey, I really feel like I've been going through this, but I know that God's got me in this, and so I've been able to get out of it. Let me show you how.
Yeah.
Because that's testimony, and that's what everybody's supposed to have. The Bible says that we overcame by two things: the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We need those two things. But if you're not developing your testimony, and really if you're not developing your testimony, that means you're simply not living.
Yeah.
Then there's a problem there. And so, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't that person that had a problem. And on top of that, I just want to make sure that I could do everything that I could to encourage people, say, hey, it's okay. You're human. You're going to make mistakes. But by His grace, you are covered. And if you've made a mistake and you're coming back to Him, you are redeemed.
Yeah.
There's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. That creates a huge argument for people who understand what that really means. You know what I'm saying? Because they struggle with the fact that because they messed up, they're still good. Now, don't keep messing up, but because they messed up, they're still good.
Yeah.
There's sins you can commit and still go to heaven.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Almost all of them, and actually really all of them when it comes down to it, because even if you deny Christ like Peter did, there's a chance for redemption there.
Yeah.
So, it's just that in a nutshell, I just really want to make sure that, there's the opportunity for every single person to square up when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just get off the muck. Don't worry about this. Stop beating around the bush. Don't sugarcoat this. Just call this what it really is and address it. Let's attack it head on.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of people when they share on social media about Christ or anything religion related, whether it be whatever religion they happen to be, they're going to come across opposition. Have you found that?
Plenty.
Yeah.
All the time.
Wow.
I love it, actually.
That's great.
Yeah. No, I feel like if I don't have opposition, number one, I'm not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I also feel that it gives me the perfect platform to very respectfully stand my ground. And that's all I've ever done. You go back and I've had some conversations with some individuals where I knew what I was getting into. I think, for example, one time I literally had addressed it to all my non-believing friends. I was like, it's a direct question. Why don't you believe? And you know what I'm saying? I asked, or I encouraged all my believing friends just step back and shut up and let them explain.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But even in that, when they did, I did not rebuttal with anything, but I did ask questions.
Yeah.
And my questions sometimes had a bit of a biblical stand, but even in that, they we had real civil, real raw conversations,
Mhm.
where I know many of them stepped away feeling refreshed that if nothing else they were heard.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really all that they want when it comes
Mm.
down to it, because that's all that we want.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be heard, um, and there's always a way to go about doing that. But our nation, my eyes roll
Under
just in
God.
case. Yeah, exactly. But no, our nation it almost seems like it's been refounded on a rhetoric that pretty much states that if you're not for, you're automatically against,
Mhm.
and everything is sown in discord. Um, and if you are not approaching somebody as such, then you're doing a bad job and you're not doing the right thing. Um, and I mean, yeah, clearly we understand that the world is not of God, and that the enemy is all in that. Like, that's all he seeks to do. He
Mhm.
wants to keep us away from him, and that's the best way to do it, because we know that God's not going to leave us, so
Yeah.
we'd have to leave him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I'm, it doesn't seem like that directly, but even in the confrontation, I'm doing my best to actually bring people closer to God and let them make the decision for themselves.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that's what's gonna. I had to make the decision. You had to make the decision. They have to make the decision for themselves, and sometimes it's really just a matter of time.
Mhm.
But in that matter of time, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that they are equipped, so that when they finally make the decision, they'll have a good idea of what they're making a decision about.
Yeah.
I hope that's simple.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's great. And that's the exact opposite of saying yes at 5 to a clown. They know what they're making a decision to, but you're not talking to a 5-year-old, you're talking
Right.
to a 35-year-old who,
Exactly.
so.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for sitting and talking with me today.
Oh no, thank you. I
I'm
appreciate
going to
it.
try to grab your photo here. Let me turn this off.